Hi everyone, I'm Rockin Robin from CookingMexicanRecipes.com, and today my husband asked me to make lasagna for dinner, so that's what I'm going to show you how I make for the family. So I start out with, it's not totally homemade, I start out with jar sauce, but I add a lot of different ingredients to it to really make it taste wonderful. So let's get started with our recipe and we'll go over the ingredients we'll need. Okay, here's what we'll need. I've got 4 jars of spaghetti sauce. We'll need a little Cabernet red wine. And I have about 1.25 pounds of ground beef. I have some mozzarella cheese here, probably about 1.25 pounds or so. And we'll need some lasagna noodles. And I've got some chopped up basil. Fresh basil and fresh parsley. And then over here we've got some mushrooms. Now I just took, I think it was about 3 or 4 mushrooms and minced them. And the reason I minced them is because my family doesn't really like to have big mushrooms in their dish. So I minced mine and they sort of disappear. Here we've got some onion. I've got 1 large yellow onion, and we'll need some salt and pepper. So I've got my frying pan over medium-high heat, and I'm just going to pour some olive oil in there, probably a tablespoon or so. And as soon as that gets hot, which it is now, I'm just going to add the onions and the mushrooms. Now I'm just going to saute this and cook it down, the longer you can do it the better, but 15 minutes at least. And this is going to add some really nice flavor to your sauce. So we'll just I'll probably turn the heat down a little bit after a few minutes and put it to medium-low. But for now I'm just going to keep stirring it and letting this cook down. So while the onions and the mushrooms are sauteing over here in this pan, I'm going to go ahead and cook up the hamburger in another pan just so I can get things done quicker. So I got my pan over medium-high heat, and I'm just going to start the hamburger. I'll add a little salt and pepper in just a minute. I'm just going to break this up. It's always nice when you can multitask and get things done quicker. Just going to add a little salt. And a little pepper. And as soon as the meat's done, I'll drain any excess grease, and then I'll add it to, I have my pan right over here where I'm going to combine everything together. Okay, so now while I have the hamburger cooking in one pan and I've got the onions and the mushroom in another pan, now we need to start thinking about our noodles, because we need to pre-cook those before we can put our lasagna together. So right here in this pan here, I have it about halfway full with some water on high, and I'm waiting for that to come to a boil. And then I'll start cooking those right away, because all this isn't going to take too much longer. So now while we're waiting for all these things to get cooked, like here I'm stirring the mushrooms and the onions together, and just keep stirring them periodically. Then you come over here and you do the same thing with the beef. Just keep stirring it. And while all this is going on, now we're going to put our sauce in this pan right here where everything's going to be combined. So I'm going to go ahead and add my sauce now. And I'm using a sauce that has roasted garlic in it, so I am not too concerned. I haven't added any garlic to this recipe, but I've got it in here. So, and you got to have, in my view, you got to have some garlic in lasagna. Okay, so my ground beef is done, and I drained it, and so now I'm going to add it to my sauce right over here. Just going to pour it all in. And you might even be wondering, why didn't I cook the ground beef with the onions together? And the reason I didn't do that is because I like to caramelize my onions, and you really can't do that when you're mixing it with the meat. So here I have better control. I can cook this longer if I want, but I think you can see that it's cooked down a fair amount, and it smells wonderful. So I'm ready to add that to our sauce. So we'll just pour that in, and now we're ready to put all of our ingredients into this pot and let it simmer for like a half an hour. And I have the temperature on low. It's starting to bubble up already. And I'm going to add the rest of our ingredients. Okay, so I've got, like I said, I've got the hamburger in here with the onions and the mushrooms. Now we're ready to add the rest of those ingredients. So I'm going to add about a half a cup of the red wine and the parsley. Give it a nice flavor, and the basil. All right. So I'm going to stir this up, and I'm going to cover it because I don't want it to cook down. And I'm going to simmer it for like I said, like a half an hour, and it looks and smells delicious. Okay, so I cooked the noodles according to the package, and now they're done, and I'm going to go ahead and drain them into a colander in the sink. This is really, really hot, so be careful. Okay. Now once I get them drained a little bit, then I'm going to go ahead and kind of lay them out and separate them a little bit so they don't stick together in this dish. Okay, so it probably would help to use like some tongs, and you just want to lay them out because they're going to kind of want to stick to each other. And as soon as I get them in this dish, we can put together our lasagna. Okay, so now we're ready to start layering and putting together our lasagna. Now you want to start with putting a couple of scoops of sauce in the bottom of your dish, and you can see the steam rising, so this is really, really hot. And by the way, I did preheat my oven to 375 degrees, because we're going to bake this, for like a half hour. Okay, so I kind of just push the sauce around a little bit, cover the bottom of the dish, and start laying down the pasta. And it's okay if you overlap it a bit, because that might happen because it's not going to fit perfectly in your dish. And then I'll put one here, and it's obviously too long, so I'm just going to tear it off. A lot of people use ricotta cheese in their lasagna, but my husband doesn't like it, so we don't do it. So the next layer for us is just the mozzarella cheese. So I'm going to lay this down. And I'm also going to sprinkle a little bit of Parmesan just because I like that. And I know he does too. So you just want to put a nice little layer. It doesn't have to be, too much. Just spread it all around, cover the noodles. Then take your Parmesan and just get a little dusting. Just gives it a little bit different flavor in there. Then our next layer, then we repeat. We go back to the sauce. Now here's where you kind of want to just pour it on and drizzle it across. Kind of cover it all, but you don't want to flood it either. So now we're down to our last layer, and you always want to end with sauce. And like I said, if you like the ricotta cheese and you want to put it in there, just put it in on the cheese layer. That's all you have to do. Now I recommend that you place this on a cookie sheet of some sort, something underneath it in case it boils over, because it might in your oven, depending on how full you end up getting it. And that can be a real mess to clean up. So a cookie sheet has saved many a day for me, having it underneath. That sauce smells great. All right, here we go. I think I'm ready. That should do it. Last layer is cheese. Get a little parm on there. Let's put a little Parmesan cheese. Now we're going to cover it with foil and put it in the oven. So I have a little sauce left over, which is no problem in my house because we can always cook up just a little bit of pasta and eat it up. But I'm going to take a little taste of the sauce because I didn't get a chance to do that yet. But it's still really, look at that, steam is just flying off of this thing. Wow. It's all about the sauce, I tell you. That is good. When you doctor it up like that, man, it really makes a difference. Okay, so it's been 30 minutes since the lasagna's been in the oven, so we're going to go ahead and check it. And we're going to pull the foil off. And hopefully the foil doesn't stick too much to the cheese. Okay, you can see everything's nice and hot and cheesy looking. Looks great. I'm going to go ahead and put this back in for another 10 minutes so that it can even brown up just a little bit. So I took the lasagna out of the oven after that second 10 minutes, and Now we need to let it sit for about 10 more minutes so that it can cool a little bit and firm up. Otherwise, if we cut it now, it's just going to kind of fall apart. But I want you to look at it and see how nice and cheesy it is. It looks amazing. So I'm going to go ahead and try and cut a piece of this out. So just take your knife and cut it out and cut a little square. Now it still looks like it might be a little hot because it looks a little saucy, but I like my lasagna saucy. I don't, a lot of times you see those lasagnas that are kind of dried out almost. They're very firm, and I like the sauce. To me, that's what makes it. So to each his own, I guess. All right, here we go. Let's see if we can do this. Oh boy. That first piece out is always the toughest. You notice that? Yeah, it's going to fall. It's going to fall. Especially if you don't get all of your noodles cut. And all it takes is one to hang you up. Oh my. Well, it's cheesy anyway. Look at that. We got strings of cheese everywhere, but it's so good. Just serve this up with a nice piece of French bread and a salad, and oh, you have a wonderful dinner. So that's how I make lasagna for my family, and they really seem to enjoy it, and I think you will too. So if you enjoyed this video, go ahead and subscribe to my channel and try the recipe and leave me a comment. Let me know how you liked it. All right, I hear my hubby. He's coming home, so I gotta run. We'll see you next time. Hi, I'm Robin from CookingMexicanRecipes.com, and today I'm going to show you how to make bolognese sauce, and we're going to serve that over some pasta. Now this is a recipe that I was fortunate enough to travel to Florence, Italy this year, and I took a cooking class, and this was the recipe that they showed us, and we all really enjoyed it, so I wanted to share it with you.